I got a notification on my phone that says that I'm now at home. And it's adjusting my phone settings. Good day. I'm serious. Let's get to business. As always, we're going to start out with finished objects. I do not have anything new for you, so I will be bringing you something old, which is my Stego sweater from 2024. There we go. Now, I realize you can't see much of it, so let me adjust you briefly. So you can see the yoke are delightful walking stegosauri. Something that was pointed out to me by a friend of mine when I wore it is that these are action stegosaurs. They are going places. They are not simply standing there, which we much appreciate. It is nice to see action dinosaurs. Now, I did make a mistake when I was working on this color work. You can see this is supposed to be this enclosed, like it is down here. But for whatever reason, I couldn't read and didn't do it that way. So I modified it so that the dinosaurs would be in the correct color and then continued with the pattern as written. Something that I wish that I had done a little bit differently is when I was doing the sleeves, I wish that I had flipped these footprints so that they were in the same direction as this line of footprints down here. That's relatively minor, and I'm not going to reknit an entire sweater over it. This was made out of Cascade 220. I don't remember what the colors were. I remember that it was in superwash. So let me explain my birthday sweater. There you go. Let me explain my birthday sweater tradition to you really quick. First of all, I get cold easily, which I have mentioned before. So used to be when winter was more wintry that the first time in the year I would get cold, I would start knitting a sweater, which I realize is the slowest potential solution to that problem. But nonetheless, I would start knitting a sweater with the goal of finishing it by my birthday, which is in late November. However, in the last several years, cold has been coming later and later, and this was leaving me with less and less time to finish a sweater in that time period. So I have modified that tradition somewhat. I just knit a sweater in the autumn. That's it. There's no more deadlines. This one, I purchased the yarn on my birthday. It arrived on November 30th, and I cast on December 1st, with the goal of finishing it by Christmas, which I did. I actually finished it on the 19th, I believe. It might be the 18th or the 19th, whichever one is that Friday, because I was sitting in my cubicle frantically trying to knit the last of the last cuff so that I could wear it to the Christmas party. I did. But that does mean that the bind off on this cuff is not the nice tubular bind off that the other one has. Now the reason for that is because I did not bring a darning needle with me, so I was trying to do the Italian bind off backwards with knitting needles instead of with a darning needle. I do this successfully with Kitchener grafting all the time, which gave me a entirely unfounded sense of confidence that I could do it with an Italian bind off. I was not successful, but I don't dislike it enough to redo it. Even though it is simply the bind off, it would be trivial to redo. I have no intention of doing so. I actually like looking at it and saying, man, I was a fool. That's an enjoyable feeling. It doesn't happen very often. So I'm going to keep this janky bind off simply because I love it so much. Now, you may have noticed in some of the close-ups, she does need a shave, which is something that I need to do. I have a little depiller comb. I just have never used it. I bought it and I was like, I need this, and then I have never used it. I should use that and clean this up. She's seen a year of wear. I've worn her probably half a dozen times. This is an excellent sweater for getting compliments. If you like it when people notice that you are wearing something handmade and they ask you if you have made it so that you can say, thanks, I made it, you should make one of these. This is widely recognized as something handmade because it is simply too cool to have come from a machine. So I wear this frequently to collect compliments. So I wear this as often as I can get away with, and will continue to do so for the remainder of this video. Oh, floats. You will want to see the inside because it's color work. One moment. Here you are. This is the inside of the back. So you can see my floats. I used a Weave and Steven there. And for something like this, something where it's not going to be, that tail is not going to bother me, I don't feel the need to completely hide it. So I do tend to leave a little bit of a longer tail. And it, when I don't use superwash, it does felt a little bit over time and just makes itself doubly secure. However, this is superwash, so that will not happen. But it is also, it's not uncomfortable, it's not bothersome. So I do leave that little bit of a tail, and then I can always find it and adjust it if I have any tension issues around the color changes in this line, which is a helpful thing over the life of a sweater to be able to make those adjustments. Here is the front, the inside of the front. I'm not sure how I did this, but this one does, to my eye at least, seem to have much nicer floats. It was in the round, it's not like I was paying that much attention to which end was the front and which was the back, but c'est la vie. Alright, next up, works in progress. I'm going to start with the big one, which might not be good for build-up or cinematic whatever, but I am not a cinematographerologist, so you get things in the order in which I wish to give them. Ireland's Eye is cast off for the sleeves. They are done. The sleeve cuffs are deceptively time consuming because I'm going to show you this. So this is where I had shown you I was last time. I can remove this now, but it took me to make half of that cuff. It took me about 8 hours of working. So there are a few reasons for that. One is that these are crisscross cables, which means that there are approximately twice as many stitches per inch as there might otherwise be were it stockinette or even this daisy rib pattern. That is part of it, and I do not want to diminish that. It does make a very lovely cuff. But it does mean that there's twice as many stitches. It also means that every stitch is being cabled every other row, which tightens things up a little bit and it requires some more manipulation. In addition to that, I, as an individual, am a very tight knitter. I'm aware of this. And I don't have any concerns about it. It has never produced a fabric that I'm unhappy with. I simply modify my needles as is appropriate to get gauge and or a fabric that I like, whichever one seems most appropriate to me at the time. But being a tight knitter means that there is less room in the stitch for you to manipulate when you need to do cables, which means that it was a very slow process. It was extremely slow. I think that that might be the reason why it went into timeout shortly after I finished the first sleeve, is that after doing that cuff, I simply could not face another one so soon, and so into the bag it went. So this has been blocked. It is still slightly damp, even though I blocked it 4 days ago, and that is because it is winter in Washington, the state, not the city, and that means that it is wet. And unless you are willing to pay my heating bill, it will remain in the low 60s in my house in order to force people to wear the hand knits that I have made them, which does mean that it takes longer for things to dry. So this is still slightly damp. But there are several things that have evened out in the blocking. So on the back, as part of the shaping, around every one of these sections is a set of increases, and that had initially led to a little bit of puckering along them, but that evened out quite nicely in the blocking. Also, this mesh stitch that makes up the hood shaping here also evened out absolutely beautifully. Look at that. Glorious. So that is looking quite nice. Also, the edging. Remember I told you last time that it is knit in a circle. It is knit outward from the center of the back, which means that finishing means doing this edging. I don't know if you can see. This is knit sideways along, and every 2 rows you combine it to the main piece down here. And it makes a beautiful finished edge. However, it does also take approximately 1 million years. I think that about halfway through this, it went into one of its other timeout sections. But being what this is, it does tend to curl slightly, and blocking completely fixed that. I don't know if it will remain fixed in washing as I wash it in the future, but We shall see. It is also inconvenient to block because of the shape. Getting the various parts of it to lay either nicely or flat as appropriate takes quite a bit of work. So if you do make an Ireland's eye, do be prepared for the maintenance that is going to be involved in the washing and laying flat of this. Or make it superwash and throw it in the washer, as is suitable for you. Something that I did notice when I tried it on, and I didn't take pictures of this because I was by myself and it was incredibly awkward. I did try it on in order to try the hood, which is this component of it here. And the hood is very shallow. It is not a functional hood, which I suppose is a positive because I don't actually use the hoods on things that I own that already have them. I seem to just like the idea of hypothetical future hoods, and so I do not use them. But it is very much a fashion hood. It does not come all the way forward on me, and the edging and lack of shaping in the edging does make it very unshaped, just very, very drapey, which is not a problem. It does make it very dramatic, which I suppose makes a lot of sense. So it's very suitable for brooding over the Irish landscape. Irish fen? The Moors are Scottish. Let me know. This does mean that all that I have left to do on this is pockets. I have stitches on holders. They have been on holders for years. They're very patient stitches and we appreciate that very much. So we shall do pockets and then we shall be done. I do not think that I will block it again after the pockets, in part because that would mean that I would have to wait until summer to wear it, which does defeat the purpose of a sweater a little bit, and I want to wear it to Christmas to get compliments. But pockets also don't tend to change the drape or structure of a garment very much, especially as low and tight as these sit. So I don't think that I will gain anything from blocking them. So I will not. Okay. So that is Ireland's eye. Let's look at our pile of stuff. I didn't bring it over with me. One moment. Sorry, a hearse just went down my street and no one lives there, so I assume it is a party hearse. Anyway, princess panels. There's our progress marker. More than last time, but still not. We're not even to a new part of the pattern yet. We're still doing the raglan increases. We haven't divided the sleeves or anything. Though one significant change that I did make is I switched needles. I switched to metal needles away from the bamboo because the friction of the bamboo was frustrating me. So I switched. This is the advantage of having different kinds of needles available. I do commonly use wooden or bamboo needles when I'm doing anything that requires a lot of stitch manipulation, such as lace, because the friction provides me with plenty of opportunities to prevent stitches from going in places where stitches should not be, such as off the needles. I also tend to use wooden needles for slicker fibers like silk or bamboo for the same reason. They tend to be a little bit unruly and I like something with a little bit more friction to keep them in place. That is not the issue with the Juniper Moon Patagonia, so I have switched to metal needles in order to speed things up. So, not a lot going on there. Still proceeding. I've come to believe that reknitting a sweater requires much more effort than knitting 2 sweaters, because at the end of the day you only have 1 sweater. Also, I had a finished sweater. It had mild fit problems. I have undone that for myself, and now I have 1 less sweater than I had before. This was entirely my doing, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to face. But I now have no choice but to proceed on that one, especially with Ireland's Eye almost done. And once I finish with my current TV knitting, this will be moved into that place, and I should hopefully be able to make more progress on it. Which brings me to that. So, as I have mentioned in the past, I have a gremlin. This gremlin has, we will call them preferences. But she does not like to wear socks inside. Socks are for outside, which I can fully appreciate. However, as I mentioned earlier, I like to keep my house fairly cool because I am not a rich man. La da 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 da. Which means that I am making her socks in the hopes that she will wear them. Now, she does not wear the hat that I made previously, the purple hat. That one. Doesn't wear it. She does play with it though. Sometimes she pulls it down over her head and goes, ah, ah, ah! which I take as a success. So I will continue to knit for her until she has enough words to tell me to stop. If that's never, that works out nicely for me. So I'm knitting a sock for a gremlin. It is gremlin sized. I've just finished with the gusset decreases and we're into the foot. Ever since I knit the Francie sock several years ago, I like the foot shaping so much that I put it on all of my vanilla socks. They are no longer vanilla socks. They are vanilla legs and then Francie from there, because I like the shaping so much. I adore the heel shaping. It stays in place quite nicely. It's very snug. The arch shaping just hugs everything quite nicely. It doesn't feel too tight. It is just beautiful. Beautiful. 10 out of 10. 5 stars. So this is getting a little miniature Francie shaping. What you will know if you have done the Francie sock before is that the gusset decreases for the Francie sock are down here, and I'm not doing that, and that is because I did not double check the pattern before I started the foot because I was on the bus. That one's on me. So I am instead moving the decreases to along that gusset line, so they will continue to stay there, and then when I add stitches, as I am having to do now because I'm past the decreases, they will be increased at the bottom of the foot per usual, and I will just proceed from there. It is simply not that big a deal. All right, it produces similar shaping, but also not quite as good shaping for high arch, but also, I don't know if you have seen gremlin feet before, but they are shaped somewhat like Lego bricks, so having terribly precise shaping is not a priority. This yarn, which you may be admiring, as you should be. It's beautiful. This was a gift several years ago, Family Secret Santa. I was given Queensland Collection Perth Australian Superwash Wool Blend in the colour Royal Bluebell. Delightful. This has been kicking around. I did make the gremlin when she was a much smaller gremlin. I did make her tiny baby mittens out of it, which means that there's quite a bit left to go. She might get several socks out of this before we are done. Maybe I will make her winter socks every year until we run out of yarn, and then she will be too big for them, alas. But it is delightful to work with. It is 2-ply. It is loosely spun, so it creates a very squishy fabric, which is quite nice. And the plies are variegated separately, so it does change color at different rates throughout between this blue purple and this kind of lavender gray. It is beautiful. It's delightful to work with. And because I'm a very simple person, I like watching the colors change. I think that's wonderful. I find that highly incentivizing. Maybe that's why I like color work so much. Maybe it's not that it goes faster. Maybe it's that I think it's fascinating. But that is a work in progress. You will also note that it is gone into the Hedgehog project bag. So there is that one. Other socks. The computer socks, not a lot there, still on the leg. Haven't made very much progress, as promised. Did I pull a needle out? No, I have 4. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I have 2 needles that are stuck in this ball. That's fine. I have several pairs of these. Wait a minute, this one's a different size. Now this is the 2.5mm, just as they should be. This one is also 2.5mm needle, so they're not different sizes. I'm just an idiot. C'est la vie. These are my favorite sock needles. These are the carbons in 2.5mm needles. So I use them a lot. I have several sets of those in the correct size. I also have one in a size 1, which is 2.25, and one in a size 2, which is 2.75, so they do occasionally get mixed up. Oh, the Star Trek socks. Let me get those. There are logistical difficulties with filming in a corner on the floor. All right. So, this is where I'm currently at. I have hit the intarsia, you can see right there. Oh wait, this is the front. This top stitch right there. It does get pretty loose as it gets worked, so as I weave in the ends, snug that up, gives us a little bit better, neater point right there. So this is intarsia, which does mean that the in progress is a little bit of a mess for a couple of reasons. One, it is 3-color, but also the badge does divide this, which means that I'm working from the inside of the ball and the outside of the ball at the same time. Also, the gold, which we have just gotten into, we're 2 rows into that, it only requires 1 yard total, but because of who I am as a person, I don't do 2 separate lengths. I just have 1 yard, which means that I am also knitting from one end of that length and the other end of that length. The same will happen in the white when we switch to the legs of the badge. Now I do just do stranded color work over the narrow leg of the badge to get the gold in the center. I find that more convenient, but it does mean that the in progress is a little bit of a mess. It is slow going. Like I said, I am writing it down as I go, how I'm doing the increases and the decreases in order to get the nice shaping. So you can see that stitch is stretched out again. It does need to be sewn in quite firmly. So it is slow going, but this is excellent progress. And I don't know if you can tell, this is with the metallic carried along. It is less sparkly than when you do the metallic in as duplicate stitch. I think that both options are viable. It really does depend on how much you like duplicate stitch and also how much you can tolerate ends on the inside of your intarsia. If you have a low tolerance for ends, duplicate stitch to your heart's content. So that is what we are working on there. This is a gold with the same shaping that I'm using now, so you can see a little bit more about what that looks like. I haven't done the duplicate stitch on this in order to get the metallic on there, so that's what it looks like without it. And then this is the gold version. Also, have not done the duplicate stitch yet. That just has the color blocking. I think that when I do the pattern, I shall include it both ways so that you can do it whichever way you like. If you do not feel that your tension with intarsia and some pretty aggressive increases and decreases at the same time, if you do not feel comfortable with that and putting that on a sock, which is a garment that is already worn stretched, I don't think that you should have to. So I'll provide the color block as well in a chart in addition to the one with the increases and decreases. I think that that would be best. Let me know. After I finish with the red one that I'm currently using to write down the pattern, I will have to make at least one in teal for pictures and for demonstration. And then I will write up the pattern and potentially put together kits. Finally, for works in progress, we have the Quarantarium hat for my partner. This bag just has yarn. Here we go. Which looks like this right now. I couldn't find my cat hair. I couldn't find my 16-inch cable, so I'm using the 32-inch cable, which means that we are doing a little traveling loop right now. But we are up to approximately 2 inches of ribbing. And I will be delighted to be done with that. 1/1 ribbing it is meditative, and I like that about it. However, that does also mean that it can be a little difficult to track progress with. Time just kind of disappears, and I feel like I can have done several rows and not see very much progress. So I've added that, so we shall see where we are at next time. It is my hope to get into the color work. Now, it is a 2-color pattern, so you can see. I am thinking about changing some of the contrast color in the top crown portion back into purple. I am doing more repeats because this is not covered by any of the sizes in the pattern. So I'm doing more repeats, which means I am doing more decreases, which is definitely going to change the shape of it. It is going to be more kind of abrupt and flat, which for a slouchy head is fine. But I think that doing the kind of center area in the white in the pollen, and then having the white and the Tyrian in for kind of the top area. I think that that might be nice. However, it does mean that there are going to be several rows where I am carrying 3 colors, which, given that this is also silk mohair and things get a little bit clingy, this might be something that I do 1 row of and then tink back and then never admit that I tried. So there you go. Now you have the evidence that I at least intended to at some point. If I don't, you'll know what happened. Something that I have noticed over my time knitting, and as I work on hats in particular, is that hats never appear to be the correct size. I always do swatches, I always check gauge, I always take measurements every single time. I do not knit generic hat sizes, and each time I find that they look wrong. They always look too long or too short or too wide. They just look wrong every single time, and then I put them on somebody and they are fine. They are just fine. What is this tin? It's sewing. Buttons. Now you know what made that noise. But hats always look wrong and incomplete, and so I am trying very, very hard to not think too much about the fact that this hat looks absolutely gigantic at this point. It is just a brim and barely that, so it is not really anything to judge based off of. This concern is further compounded by the fact that the intended recipient does not have hair. So if it doesn't grip well, then there is nothing to help it, which might be a minor fit issue. But on the other hand, the recipient does not like hats that fit too tightly, so we shall see. What I do know is that I will not be unknitting this hat, because it is mohair. That will not be happening. So if it doesn't work, then I will make the necessary gauge modifications, and then I will be knitting another one, which means that I will have an extra hat for somebody with a 24.5-inch circumference head, which will be difficult to gift, but not impossible. So we shall manage. I will keep you posted. So that is everything that I'm working on right now. For acquisitions, I have nothing, but we do have our mystery bags. So we have bag of sock yarn. I think that it is potentially all the same stuff. Oh, there's something partially done in there. Delightful. So we have that, and then we also have I want to show you what I'm working with here. This is my corner. It needs to be organized. But when you hear me shuffling through things, yes, when you hear me shuffling through things, understand that this is what I'm working with, which is the result of my own chaos. Ah, okay. Gray, right? Mystery gray. A lot of something that appears to be fully knit. And also something else that I found. Is this entire skein of something that is exactly the same color. So this might be what this is made of. We figure out what it is. But this is something that I've had for many years, and it is Galler Yarn Peruvian Tweed, 100% superfine alpaca made in Peru, grown in the Andes. In the color slate gray. Delightful. So if that is that, then we shall have to see how much yarn we have. This is a 600 yard skein. So, and I weighed it, and this is a complete skein. This has not been used. So whatever is going on here is substantial because it used 2 of them. There are 2 remaining labels in that bag. So what should we open next time? Should we open sock yarn? Should we open gray? Or should we open a completely different bag of miscellaneous nonsense that I found? Any bets on how long this will take to identify and catalog all of my yarn? Let me know in the comments. So, let me know what you would like to see us unbag next time. And then, for a treat, because I have now shown you the squalor in which I live, I would like to open a box. It's not a new box. I haven't purchased anything. Remember some time ago, or I told you about this, I believe last time, when a friend of mine needed to buy me something for Christmas, wanted to buy me something for Christmas. It's never a requirement. And he Googled how to buy yarn and ended up getting me quite a bit of crochet cotton. Well, this is the box that came in. Okay. And I took a little tiny peek into it, and I want to show you what I saw when I took a little tiny peek into it. I went, boop, and I was like, that's not crochet cotton. So I've saved it to show you. We're gonna open it together. First of all, very serious mouse pad. I do not currently use a mouse, but if I do, it will have a good home. Okay. Oh, this is something that I was making out of the Rowan. Showed you a bowl of. What is this? This looks like the front of a sweater. No, this is the back of a sweater because it has minimal neck shaping. And then it has set-in sleeves. And only 1.5 inches of ribbing. Interesting. Is there more of this in here? Oh, I cast on. For presumably the front. Which means that this must be attached to another ball of yarn. Technically correct. Okay. Well, we'll just add that one to the works in progress and see what we can do with it. It looks fairly narrow, and that means that it might not end up being for me, but since it is primarily mohair, I will not be frogging it. So I will have to find somebody of small stature to gift it to. No, I don't know what this is. It's 2 colors, 2 ply. 2, well, I think ply might be a little bit generous. It is barely spun. That's what it is. And there's not a lot of it, which tells me that it might be some leftovers from something. And I think that it might be acrylic. Looks kind of blown together. Let's see. Do not do this without the appropriate training and or safety equipment. What do we have here? Okay. So it continues to burn, which means that it is not wool. It smells acrid. And it forms these little black beads at the end. So this is definitely acrylic. This is not a natural fiber. Little sewing kit came in useful, which is delightful. Oh, we have more of the Shibui Silk Cloud. This is in the color Mineral. Delightful. Oh, she had a closet full of the stuff, Laura did. She just gave it to me. What is this? Look at that. The variegation looks... It's definitely left over from something. I have no memory of this. Variegation looks almost Malabrigo-esque. Let's see what we've got. Ooh, it put itself out. Delightful. This does smell like hair, burning hair. Okay, and the bead, ashes, but it is black. Okay, so it's a mix. It does contain wool. Based on the weight of it, I'm going to make an educated guess that it is sock yarn, which means that it is probably mixed with wool mixed with a stabilizer. So there's that, which is nice. This is a small enough quantity that it will go into my scrap blanket, which I will show you next time. That will be one of my works in progress that I'll show you then. This is something that I started at some point out of some silk cloud. What was I doing? Any guesses? I don't know. These are beautiful needles. Let's see what we're attached to down here. We're not attached to this, are we? We are. Okay. So this might be more of the mineral. No. Well, maybe. These might be both mineral. So whatever I was working on, it is something with a very small circumference. Oh well. That will go away. That will get frogged. We don't know what that is. Okay. There's actually several works in progress in here. This, something that I was making. I don't recognize the stitch. Some kind of fir cone. Or a wheat stitch. But this is the bottom. And the bottom is larger. So it is knit down. It's a shawl. It's a triangular knit shawl. And it's knit down to the point, which is here. See, I have the wooden needles for lace. Which is delightful. I have absolutely no idea what this pattern is. There's not a printout in here. So I shall have to see. It might be a birch. It might be a birch. Since it is no longer 2008, birches are somewhat out of fashion, but this might be a birch. I shall have to see. And the yarn that it's attached to is this. This is beautiful. It's very soft. Very little spring to it. It's got a little bit of shine as well. So, what might you be, my little friend? Well, odds are flammable. So, okay, it put itself out almost immediately. It does have a little, I don't know if you can see. Focus. Okay, maybe not. But it does have a little tiny bit of a halo. And it dried, or not dried, it burned, not into a bead, but into a length like that, which crumbles black and not grey. So I think that this is a wool silk blend. Yeah, doesn't smell like plastic. So at some point, I spent big money on yarn for a lace shawl, potentially a birch, and then I put it in a box and forgot about it. Good job, me. Okay, so I'll add that one to the works in progress as well, so we shall see. Okay, now we have one more skein of the Cascade Yarns Distributors of Fine Yarn Cascade 220 in the color 9487. Delightful. 100% Peruvian Highland wool. This is a worsted weight? Yes. Worsted weight. This is not my color, as you can clearly see. So, we have one skein of it. What should we do with it? Do you think that it might go with the heathered green that we found last time? Maybe we can do something. Something potentially stripy. Okay. So I picked up two things because I thought that they might go together, but it seems that they do not. So this is a ball of something. It would be about fingering weight, potentially as heavy as sport, but it's like there's a good amount of it. There's a good amount of it here. This is not insignificant. And we are going to set it on fire. Boop. Okay. Went out immediately. Smells very strongly of burning hair. And we have black ash. So I feel very confident in saying that this is primarily wool. It might have a small amount of an acrylic component because it did kind of, it was crispy. It wasn't soft like wool ash typically is, but it might be very nice. We shall weigh this and find out how much it is. The other thing that I picked up because I thought that it might be the same is this, which is another Cascade. Distributor of fine yarn, Cascade 220 Heathers. This is color 2425. If you do not have descriptive colors for your yarns, I am mildly irked with you. That is as much ire as I can muster for such a trivial thing. But please, pumpkin? Something? Descriptive. Por favor. So, I think that I shall have to start doing more with worsted weight because I seem to have a significant amount of it simply lying around and I do not like just having things in boxes. So let's think on this. These actually go quite nicely together. I mean, they're complementary colors, but they're also fairly muted. I will put this in black and white. Let's do that real quick. There, so we can check the value difference. And these might go quite nicely. We shall see. We have crochet cotton, the original tenants of this yarn, or of this box, the original tenants of this box, and some more of the passion flower. This is Premier Home Cotton in, what color are you? Sunflower. This is not the color that a sunflower is. See, this is why descriptive color names are important. And it's important to take them seriously and do them well, because this is not sunflower. This is buttercup. This is butter. This is cartoon sunshine. This is not sunflower. Have you seen a sunflower? They are not this color. They sit somewhere between true yellow and marigold. Speaking of, now, based on what we have found so far, I have a sneaking suspicion that this will be more wool. It is probably Cascade Distributors of Fine Yarn 220. Okay, so again, put itself out fairly quickly. Smells like burnt hair. Crumbly ash. Yeah, a little bit of crackle to it. Yeah, so I do think that this is, once again, this is wool, which is nice. Maybe we shall do something with all of them. We should make a chaos something. And then this looks like this. I think that these might be the same or very close. It is definitely heathered. Yes, I think that these are the same. So we shall keep them together in the pile. We get to the bottom of the box now, and that yields for us a box cutter. That's nice. This has a bunch of ice cream brands on it, which tells me that I may have pocketed it at some point when I worked in an ice cream warehouse. So that is mine. That is everything from this box. This was delightful. Thank you for joining me on this lovely adventure. We now have so much yarn to not knit while we finish other things, but planning is fun too. So we have an escapee. This is fairly tightly spun. See if we can get this to show up. Get in focus. There you go. Yeah, this is fairly tightly spun. It's about fingering weight. What are you? Little friend. Ooh. Very nice yellow. Does not self-extinguish, so it's not animal hair. Burns very cleanly. Look at that. Almost nothing left. This is cotton. Yes, basically no ash at all. This is cotton. Why do I have this? I don't know. But more yarn cannot be a bad thing. So, that was that. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been enjoyable. I've enjoyed it. If you like this and you would like to take knitting seriously with me, feel free to like and subscribe. And remember to take your life seriously, or no one else will. Until next time.